The porch light was still on. That was the first thing Caleb noticed. A warm yellow glow spilling through the second-floor window of a farmhouse buried deep in the Montana mountains, flickering softly against the falling snow like someone inside had forgotten to turn it off before bed. Except the house had been abandoned for 3 years. Rex stopped in the middle of Highway 47, so suddenly the truck tires hissed against black ice. Caleb gripped the wheel hard as the German shepherd lunged toward the shoulder, barking once. Sharp. Urgent. Not aggression. Recognition. Rex. Caleb shoved open the truck door, freezing wind tearing instantly through his jacket. Snow whipped sideways across the empty road, stinging his face like tiny shards of glass. The dog was already halfway across the ditch, paws crashing through waist-high brush toward the dark tree line beyond. Caleb cursed under his breath and grabbed the flashlight from the passenger seat. Easy boy. But Rex never slowed. The shepherd moved with the kind of focus Caleb had only seen overseas. Nose low, ears rigid, body cutting through the storm like something invisible was pulling him forward. The farmhouse emerged slowly between the pines. Old, white paint peeling away in long curls. Windows boarded on the first floor. Porch sagging beneath years of snow and neglect. The place looked dead. Not empty. Dead. Caleb knew the property. Everyone around Blackwater County did. Mercer Farm. Family vanished sometime during winter 3 years earlier. No bodies ever found. Just an abandoned truck near the river and a front door left hanging open in the wind. After that, locals avoided the place. Too many strange stories. Too many lights seen at night when nobody was supposed to be there. Rex reached the porch and froze. His breathing clouded heavily in the cold air. Caleb climbed the wooden steps carefully, boots creaking against frost-covered planks. The smell hit him first. Dust. Wet wood. Rushed. And beneath all of it, smoke. Fresh smoke. His pulse slowed in that dangerous way it always did before something bad happened. Somebody's here, he muttered. The porch swing moved slightly in the wind. Back and forth. Back and forth. A chipped ceramic mug sat beside it. Snow had gathered on the handle, but the inside still carried a faint trace of steam. Caleb stared at it. Impossible. He crouched carefully, touching the rim with 2 fingers. Warm. Rex let out a low growl deep in his chest. Not loud. Worse. Controlled. Caleb rose slowly and looked back toward the road. Nothing except darkness swallowing the mountains whole. The nearest town was 20 miles south. Nobody should have been up here in this weather. Another gust rattled the loose shutters overhead. Then came the sound. A single thud from inside the house. Caleb's flashlight snapped toward the front window. Silence. Hello, he called. No answer. Rex moved closer to the door, ears twitching violently now. Caleb noticed scratches along the bottom wood panels. Hundreds of them. Some old. Some fresh enough that splinters still curled outward pale against the paint. The Marine's jaw tightened. Jesus! The front door drifted open an inch by itself with a long wooden groan. Warm air slipped through the crack, carrying the faint smell of canned soup and burned firewood. Someone had been living here. Recently. Caleb pushed the door wider. The beam from his flashlight swept across the room. Dust floated through the air like ash. Furniture sat exactly where it had been left years ago. Family photos still hung crooked on the walls. A child's winter coat rested beside the staircase, tiny pink gloves dangling from one sleeve. But what stopped him cold was the dining table. 4 plates, set neatly, silverware arranged perfectly beside them, as if a family had simply stepped away moments earlier. Caleb's throat tightened slightly. Rex, the dog, wasn't looking at the table. He was staring up the staircase, completely motionless. Then Caleb saw it too. Wet footprints. Small ones. Bare feet. Fresh snowmelt trailing down the upstairs hallway. Not adult footprints. Child-sized. A floorboard creaked somewhere above them. Rex barked once. Violent this time. The upstairs light suddenly went out. The darkness upstairs swallowed the hallway so completely it felt alive. Caleb stood frozen near the staircase, every instinct sharpening at once, while snow hissed softly against the farmhouse windows. Rex moved first. The German shepherd climbed 2 steps slowly, muscles tight beneath his sable coat, amber eyes fixed upward without blinking. Caleb tightened his grip on the flashlight. "Easy," he whispered, though he was no longer sure whether he meant the dog or himself. The beam cut across the staircase wall, revealing faded family photos coated in dust. A smiling couple beside a pickup truck. A little blonde girl holding a pumpkin almost bigger than her head. Christmas stockings hanging over the same fireplace, now sitting cold and silent behind him. But one thing was wrong. In every photograph after 2018, the father's face had been scratched out. Not torn, carefully scratched away. Caleb felt the back of his neck tighten. Rex growled again. Low, uneasy. The Marine climbed slowly behind him, boots creaking against old wood. Halfway up the stairs, another sound drifted through the house. Not footsteps. Music, faint and warped like it came from underwater. Caleb stopped breathing for a second while the melody floated softly through the darkness above them. A lullaby, crackling through static. Old cassette tape audio. Somewhere upstairs, something was still playing music. Rex suddenly darted forward. Rex! Caleb rushed after him as the dog disappeared down the narrow hallway. Doors lined both sides, some hanging open, others shut tight. The wallpaper peeled in long damp strips. Water stains spread across the ceiling like old bruises. The lullaby stopped abruptly. Silence crashed back into the house. Then came a different sound, a soft metallic click. Caleb turned toward the end bedroom, just as the flashlight beam caught movement behind the cracked doorway. Small, fussed, gone instantly. His pulse hammered now. "I am not here to hurt you," he called carefully into the darkness. No answer. Rex reached the doorway and stopped dead. Not aggressive. Alert. Waiting. Caleb stepped closer and pushed the door open slowly. The room inside was frozen in time. Moonlight spilled faintly through torn curtains onto shelves filled with children's books, stuffed animals, and dusty snow globes. A tiny bed sat against the wall beneath glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. Everything looked untouched for years, except for one thing. Beside the bed sat a small lantern. Caleb stared at the weak orange flame trembling behind the glass. Somebody had lit it recently. Very recently. His flashlight drifted lower. There were blankets piled beside the radiator. Empty soup cans stacked carefully near the vent. Water bottles. Fresh ones. Somebody had been sleeping here. Caleb crouched slowly near the blankets. The fabric was still warm. Rex sniffed the floor, then nudged something hidden beneath the edge of the bed. Caleb pulled it free carefully. A cassette tape. Black plastic worn smooth with age. Across the label, written in faded blue marker, were 3 words. For Lily only. Caleb's chest tightened. Lily Mercer, the missing daughter. Snow rattled suddenly against the windows harder now as the storm thickened outside. The power lines beyond the trees swayed violently in the wind. Caleb slid the tape into his jacket pocket, just as Rex's ears snapped toward the closet. The dog stiffened completely. 1 second later came a tiny sound from inside, barely audible, a shaky breath. Caleb slowly approached the closet door. "Lily," he asked softly. Silence. He lowered himself carefully to one knee. "You do not need to be scared anymore." Another long pause. Then the faintest whisper drifted through the wood. "You should not have come here." Caleb's heart sank at the sound of the voice. Young, exhausted, terrified. Rex moved closer to the door and gently rested his head against it. No barking, no growling now, just stillness. Waiting. The whisper came again, weaker this time. "They always come back when the lights turn on." Caleb frowned slightly. "Who comes back?" The closet door rattled softly from the inside. Not opening, trembling. Then suddenly every light in the hallway flickered on at once. Upstairs, downstairs, even the porch light outside exploded back to life in a flood of yellow against the storm. Caleb spun toward the hall in shock. The farmhouse electrical system had been disconnected years ago. Rex barked violently toward the staircase. And somewhere below them, the front door slowly creaked open. The sound downstairs did not belong in an empty house. Caleb felt it immediately. The slow drag of wet boots across old hardwood. Rex exploded into motion before the Marine could react, racing into the hallway with a bark so deep it rattled the picture frames on the walls. "Stay here," Caleb whispered toward the closet door, though he did not know if Lily would listen. The hallway lights flickered violently overhead, buzzing with weak yellow pulses that painted the farmhouse in flashes of shadow and gold. Caleb moved fast now, flashlights sweeping ahead while the storm hammered the roof harder by the second. Downstairs, the front door stood half open, snow blowing inside across the floorboards. Cold air rushed through the house, carrying the scent of pine and diesel fuel. Caleb stopped halfway down the staircase. Fresh footprints covered the entry floor. Heavy ones, adult-sized. His pulse spiked instantly. Somebody else had just entered the farmhouse. Rex stood near the doorway, teeth exposed, staring into the darkness outside. The dog's body trembled with warning. Caleb stepped beside him carefully and aimed the flashlight toward the road below the hill. At first, he saw nothing except snow swirling across the trees. Then a shape appeared between the pines. Headlights, far off, moving slowly uphill toward the farmhouse. Caleb swore quietly under his breath. Nobody should have been able to reach this road during the storm unless they already knew where they were going. Behind him, a sudden crash echoed upstairs. Not loud. Something knocked over in panic. "Lily, Kaleg spun instantly." "Rex." The German shepherd hesitated only 1 second before turning from the door and charging back upstairs ahead of him. Caleb followed fast, boots pounding against the old wood while wind screamed through the open front entrance below. The lights died again, halfway up the staircase. Darkness swallowed everything. Only the flashlight remained now, slicing narrow beams across the walls as the house groaned around them. Caleb reached the bedroom and shoved the door open. The lantern beside the bed had been knocked sideways. Blankets scattered across the floor. The closet door hung open. Empty. Lily. No answer. Rex barked sharply near the vent beside the radiator. Caleb dropped to one knee and shined the flashlight lower. Behind the metal grate, hidden deep inside the wall, a pair of terrified blue eyes stared back at him. The girl pressed herself into the narrow crawl space, shaking violently. "They came back," she whispered. Caleb softened his voice immediately. "Nobody is going to hurt you." Her face tightened with panic. "You do not understand. If they see me, they will not leave this time." Another pair of headlights suddenly flashed through the upstairs windows. Closer now. Caleb moved toward the glass carefully and pulled aside the curtain just enough to see. A dark pickup truck crawled through the storm toward the house with its headlights off. The vehicle stopped near the barn below the hill. Engine running. Caleb's stomach tightened. Whoever was inside knew exactly where they were. Rex growled low beside him, ears pinned flat now. Caleb looked back toward the vent. "Lily," he said quietly, "who are they?" The girl hesitated so long he thought she might not answer. Then finally, barely louder than the storm itself, she whispered, "The men my father tried to stop." Caleb felt the weight of those words settle heavily into the room. Outside, a truck door slammed shut. One, then another. Snow crunched beneath slow footsteps below the porch. Caleb's marine instincts snapped fully awake now, every detail sharpening. He scanned the bedroom quickly. One exit through the hallway, another through the back stairs near the laundry room. Two exposed. The storm was worsening by the minute. Roads would be buried within an hour. No signal, no backup. And somewhere downstairs, strangers were walking toward the same frightened child who had survived alone inside these walls for 3 winters. Rex suddenly moved toward the bedroom door and froze again. Listening. Caleb heard it too. Voices downstairs. Muffled. Calm. One of them laughed softly. Lily's breathing became uneven inside the vent. He said if they ever found the tape, she whispered shakily, it meant he failed. Caleb's hand slowly moved to the cassette tape. Inside his jacket pocket. For Lily only. The question settled into his chest like cold iron. What exactly had her father hidden on that tape that people were still searching for 3 years later? Then the floorboards downstairs creaked directly beneath the bedroom. The footsteps downstairs stopped directly beneath the bedroom. Silence settled over the farmhouse, so suddenly it felt unnatural, as if the entire mountain had paused to listen. Caleb slowly lowered the flashlight beam toward the hallway, while snow battered the windows in violent bursts. Rex stood rigid beside him, every muscle locked tight, eyes fixed on the dark stairwell. Then came a voice from below. "Come, male." "Lily." The girl inside the vent gasped softly and pulled farther into the shadows. Caleb looked back at her immediately. Her face had gone pale beneath the dust, streaking her cheeks. "Do not answer," she whispered urgently. "He always says my name like that." Caleb frowned. The voice downstairs came again, gentler this time. "We are not here to hurt you." Rex answered with a deep growl that rolled through the room like distant thunder. Caleb's jaw tightened. Something about the voice felt wrong. Too patient, too rehearsed. He moved carefully toward the hallway and glanced downstairs through the broken railing. A man stood near the fireplace below, wearing a heavy winter coat, dusted with snow. Mid-50s, gray beard, empty hands raised slightly as he looked around the house. Another man waited near the front door beside the storm blowing inside. Neither appeared threatening. That was what unsettled Caleb most. The older man looked up slowly toward the staircase. "You military?" he asked calmly after noticing Rex. Caleb did not answer. The man nodded faintly as though expecting silence. "Then you understand what loyalty costs." Behind Caleb, Lily suddenly whispered, "That is him." The Marine turned back toward the vent. "Who?" Her eyes trembled with fear. "Mr. Holloway." The name clearly meant something to her. Caleb crouched closer. "Who is he?" Lily swallowed hard before answering. "He used to come to dinner." Caleb felt cold settle deeper into his chest. Downstairs, the older man slowly removed his gloves beside the fireplace. "Your father trusted the wrong people, Lily," he called softly. "I told him secrets destroy families." Caleb studied the man carefully from above. No anger in his voice, no urgency, just sadness that almost made it worse. Rex remained motionless beside the stairs, staring downward without blinking. The second man by the door suddenly looked toward the kitchen window. "Road is disappearing fast," he muttered. "Storm is getting worse." Caleb glanced outside. The snowfall had thickened into near whiteout conditions now. Pine trees bent violently in the wind. The truck below the hill was already half buried beneath drifting snow. They were running out of time. If the road vanished completely before morning, nobody was leaving this mountain. A sharp crack echoed through the farmhouse as ice slammed against one of the downstairs windows. Lily flinched inside the vent. Caleb turned toward her again and lowered his voice. "Listen to me carefully. Did your father leave anything besides the tape?" The girl hesitated. Rex suddenly shifted toward her instead of the hallway now, ears twitching. Caleb noticed it instantly. The dog had caught another scent. Lily slowly reached into the darkness behind her and pulled something into the faint flashlight beam. A small metal tin, rusted around the edges. Caleb took it carefully. Inside sat dozens of old photographs folded tightly together. Family pictures, military uniforms, maps. But beneath them was something else. A sheriff's badge wrapped in plastic beside a handwritten note. Caleb unfolded it slowly while the storm roared outside the walls. "Trust nobody from Blackwater County." His stomach tightened. Downstairs, Mr. Holloway began climbing the stairs. Slow, unhurried. "Lily," he said quietly, "you have been alone long enough." Rex barked once, violent enough to shake the hallway. Caleb stood immediately, instincts firing through him now. The conflict hit him hard and fast. If he confronted the men openly, Lily could panic and disappear deeper into the walls. But if he stayed hidden too long, they could become trapped upstairs with no escape once the storm sealed the house completely. He had spent years learning how to extract people from danger. But this was different. The girl did not trust rescue anymore. Another stair creaked below. Closer now. Caleb's eyes moved quickly across the room, searching for options. Then he noticed something strange near the radiator beneath the window. Scratches. Fresh ones. Rex noticed them too. The dog immediately crossed the room and pressed his nose against the wall beside the vent. Caleb crouched quickly and pushed aside the old dresser blocking part of the panel. Hidden behind it was a narrow door almost invisible beneath the wallpaper. A passageway, Lily whispered shakily from inside the vent. My father built it after the first threat. Caleb looked toward the staircase as footsteps reached the second-floor landing. Then he looked back toward the hidden passage disappearing into darkness behind the wall. One path meant facing strangers he did not understand. The other meant trusting a frightened child who had survived alone for 3 winters inside a haunted farmhouse. Mr. Holloway's shadow slowly appeared across the hallway floor. Caleb grabbed the hidden door just as Mr. Holloway's boots reached the hallway outside. Rex moved instantly in front of the entrance, shoulders squared, a deep warning rumbling through his chest. The old man stopped beyond the bedroom doorway, his shadow stretching long across the floorboards in the weak flashlight glow. You do not have to hide from me anymore, Lily, he said softly. Caleb looked toward the narrow passage disappearing behind the wall. Cold air drifted out carrying the scent of damp earth and old pine wood. Lily crawled halfway from the vent, pale fingers trembling against the floor. For the first time, Caleb could see how young she truly looked. 12 years old, but her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone much older. Please, she whispered, do not let him hear the tape. Mr. Holloway took another careful step into the room. He finally saw Caleb clearly now. His expression did not harden. If anything, it looked sadder. You found her, he murmured. Caleb stood slowly between the man and the hidden passage. You should leave. The old man's eyes drifted, briefly toward Rex. The German shepherd had not stopped growling once. That dog remembers me, Holloway said quietly. Caleb frowned slightly at that. What are you talking about? Holloway exhaled slowly, snow melting from his coat onto the warped wood beneath him. 3 years ago, her father came to me terrified, said he uncovered something ugly running through Blackwater County, smuggling routes through the mountains, corrupt deputies, money moving where it should not. Caleb's grip tightened on the flashlight. Holloway continued carefully. Ethan Mercer thought he could expose them alone. Lily lowered her head at the sound of her father's name. The storm outside slammed hard against the house, rattling every loose window at once. Holloway glanced toward the sound before continuing. I tried to help him disappear before they found out what he knew. Caleb studied the man carefully. Then why is she hiding from you? For the first time, Holloway hesitated. A long silence settled over the room. Because I was too late. Rex suddenly barked once toward the hallway. Sharp! Urgent! Caleb turned instantly. Another sound had entered the farmhouse. Not footsteps this time. A vehicle engine. Closer than before. Through the upstairs window, headlights suddenly swept across the snow-covered yard. A second truck had arrived. Holloway's face changed immediately. Whatever calm he carried vanished. They followed us, he muttered under his breath. Caleb's pulse sharpened. Who? Holloway looked directly at him now. The people Ethan stole evidence from. Downstairs, a truck door slammed hard against the wind. Voices echoed faintly through the storm outside. More than before, Caleb immediately crouched beside the hidden passage. Lily, can this tunnel get us out? She nodded quickly. It leads beneath the barn. Holloway stepped forward urgently. Then you need to move now. Caleb did not miss the fear in the old man's voice. Real fear. Rex backed toward the passage protectively while keeping his eyes locked on the hallway. Caleb helped Lily crawl from the vent fully for the first time. She was painfully thin beneath the oversized sweater hanging from her shoulders, blonde. Hair tangled from years without proper care. But what struck him hardest was what she carried around her neck. Military dog tags. Ethan Mercer's. Rex froze the instant he saw them. The German shepherd stepped closer slowly, nose twitching, ears lifting with sudden recognition. Lily stared at the dog in confusion as Rex gently pressed his nose against the tags. Then something extraordinary happened. The shepherd whimpered softly. Not fear, grief. Caleb felt a chill run through him. Rex, he whispered. Holloway looked at the dog carefully. That is impossible. Caleb turned sharply toward him. What? The old man swallowed once. Ethan used to volunteer at the Military Rehabilitation Center after Afghanistan. He worked with retired K-9 units. Rex remained beside Lily now, trembling faintly as he sniffed the old tags again and again like he had found a scent buried deep inside memory itself. Holloway stared at the dog in disbelief. Your shepherd knew her father. The room went silent except for the storm screaming outside the farmhouse walls. Caleb's chest tightened as pieces began fitting together in ways he did not yet understand. Rex had not found this place by accident. The dog had recognized it. Another loud sound echoed from downstairs. The front door slammed open again. Voices flooded the entryway below. Caleb killed the flashlight instantly. Darkness swallowed the bedroom whole. Then from somewhere downstairs came a sentence that made Lily stop breathing. Find the tape before the girl. The bedroom disappeared into absolute darkness after Caleb killed the flashlight. Only the storm remained alive now, growling through the mountains while snow hissed against the broken windows. Downstairs, boots moved slowly across the old hardwood. Measured, careful, people searching a house they already understood. Caleb crouched beside Lily inside the hidden passage entrance while Rex stood near the bedroom door like a living barricade. The German shepherd did not bark this time. He listened, every muscle in his body taut beneath the faint lightning flashing through the curtains. Then came a voice from downstairs. Come, familiar. Check the walls. Ethan always hid things inside the walls. Lily's face went white instantly. Caleb saw it even in the darkness. You know that voice, he whispered. The girl nodded slowly, fear tightening her breathing. Deputy Grayson. Caleb felt cold settle through his chest. The sheriff's badge from the tin suddenly made terrible sense. Corruption had not been rumor. It had been protection. Holloway crouched near the passage entrance beside them, speaking barely above a whisper. Grayson was Ethan's closest friend. Caleb looked at him sharply. Then why is he here? Holloway closed his eyes briefly like a man carrying years of regret. Because Ethan trusted the wrong badge. Rex suddenly stepped backward from the bedroom doorway, ears pinned tight. Someone was climbing the stairs. Slow creaks echoed through the hallway outside. Caleb motioned Lily toward the tunnel. Move. But the girl froze. The tape, she whispered. Caleb's hand instinctively touched his jacket pocket. Holloway looked toward it too. That tape is why they never stopped looking for her. Another floorboard groaned outside the room. Closer now. Caleb finally pulled the cassette free and stared at it in the darkness. For Lily only. His mind raced. 3 years. Missing family. Corrupt deputies. A frightened child hidden inside walls while strangers kept returning to an abandoned farmhouse, searching for something that still terrified them. None of it added up unless the tape contained more than evidence. Holloway seemed to read the thought on his face. Ethan recorded names, he whispered. Routes. Payoffs. Deliveries through the mountains. Caleb frowned. Then why not go federal? Holloway looked toward Lily. Because the moment he tried, somebody inside the task force warned Grayson first. The stair creaks stopped directly outside the bedroom. Silence. Then the doorknob slowly turned. Rex exploded into furious barking as the door pushed open halfway. Flashlight beams swept across the room wildly. Caleb shoved Lily toward the tunnel while Holloway pulled the hidden panel nearly shut. Through the narrow crack, Caleb could see Deputy Grayson standing in the bedroom doorway. Tall, heavy winter coat, snow melting from his shoulders. His flashlight moved calmly across the room while Rex snarled near the bed. Easy, boy, Grayson murmured softly. The deputy sounded almost sad. I know you remember me too. Caleb's pulse stopped for half a second. 2. Grayson slowly crouched near the floor beside Rex. You used to sit right here while Ethan fixed your leg. Caleb stared through the crack in disbelief. Grayson reached into his coat pocket carefully and removed an old photograph. He set it gently on the floor in front of the dog. Lightning flashed outside at the exact moment Caleb saw it. Ethan Mercer kneeling beside Rex years earlier. Younger, smiling. One arm around the shepherd's neck. military medical tents behind them. Afghanistan. Caleb felt the entire story shift beneath him. Rex had not just known Ethan. Ethan had saved him. The German shepherd's growling weakened into a low, confused whine as he stared at the photograph. Grayson's voice softened. "Your father pulled that dog out of an explosion overseas," he said quietly toward the darkness where he knew Lily was hiding. Rex belonged to Ethan before the Marines transferred him stateside after the injury. Caleb looked at Rex in stunned silence. The dog had led them here because this farmhouse had once been home. The shepherd had not followed a scent through the storm. He had followed memory. Lily's eyes filled instantly with tears inside the tunnel. Dad said Rex disappeared after the deployment. Grayson lowered his flashlight slowly. "Your father searched for him for almost a year." The deputy's face tightened with grief now, something painfully human finally breaking through the coldness. "Ethan trusted me because I was the one who helped him bring Rex home." Caleb's mind raced violently, trying to understand which parts were lies and which were truth. If Grayson loved Ethan like a brother, why hunt his daughter for 3 years? As if hearing the question inside him, Grayson spoke again. "I tried to protect them at first." His voice cracked slightly. But once the cartel realized Ethan copied everything onto that tape, he stopped. Another voice shouted from downstairs. "We found the truck tracks outside." Grayson's face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. He stepped closer toward the hidden wall and lowered his voice urgently. "They are not here for the girl anymore." Caleb tightened instinctively around the cassette. Grayson stared directly toward the passage. "They are here because the tape was never the real secret." The words hung inside the hidden passage heavier than the storm outside. The tape was never the real secret. Caleb stared through the narrow crack at Deputy Grayson while snow hissed against the farmhouse roof like static. Rex remained frozen near the photograph on the floor, amber eyes fixed on Ethan Mercer's smiling face from years ago. The dog looked caught between two lives, the one he remembered, and the one that had led him back here tonight. "What does that mean?" Caleb whispered sharply. Grayson glanced once toward the staircase as voices echoed downstairs. "Men's searching room by room now." "Closer." Ethan copied everything, the deputy said quietly. "Not onto the tape. Into something nobody would ever think to search." Caleb's hand tightened instinctively around the cassette. Lily slowly looked up from the darkness of the tunnel, confusion trembling across her face. "My dad said the tape would protect me." Grayson's expression broke slightly at those words. "No, sweetheart," he whispered. "Your father made the tape so you would survive long enough for somebody to understand the truth." Caleb felt the hidden meaning immediately. The cassette was bait, a decoy, something dangerous enough to keep everyone chasing the wrong thing while the real evidence stayed hidden somewhere else entirely. Downstairs, furniture scraped violently across hardwood. Somebody was tearing through the house now. Rex suddenly moved toward Lily instead of the doorway. Slowly, carefully, the German shepherd lowered himself beside her inside the narrow passage until his warm body pressed gently against her shoulder. The girl froze at first. Then her shaking hand slowly disappeared into the thick fur around his neck. Caleb watched the moment in silence. Something inside the dog softened instantly. Rex closed his eyes for half a second as Lily's fingers brushed the old scar along his shoulder. "Dad used to clean this scar every night," she whispered faintly. Rex let out a low sound deep in his chest. Not a growl, a memory. Caleb swallowed hard. 3 years alone inside frozen walls. And somehow the first thing that made this child feel safe again was the same dog her father once rescued overseas. The emotional weight of it settled through the room quietly and painfully. Grayson looked away toward the storm outside the bedroom window. "Ethan believed dogs remembered goodness longer than people did," he murmured. Looks like he was right. Then suddenly the hallway floorboards creaked again. Not Grayson. Someone else approaching fast. The deputy's face tightened instantly. "Move now," he hissed under his breath. Caleb pulled the hidden panel wider while Holloway guided Lily deeper into the narrow tunnel. Rex refused to move at first. The dog stayed beside the photograph on the floor, staring at Ethan Mercer's image beneath the flashlight beam. Caleb crouched beside him quickly. "Rex!" The shepherd finally looked up. Caleb had seen combat dogs hesitate before, usually near the bodies of handlers they loved. But this felt different, like the dog had spent years searching for a home already gone. Caleb gently grabbed the photograph and tucked it inside his jacket beside the cassette tape. "Come on, buddy." Rex followed him into the passage just as a flashlight beam swept into the bedroom from the hallway. Voices erupted immediately outside. Somebody was here. The hidden panel closed inches before footsteps rushed fully into the room. Darkness swallowed them again. The tunnel smelled of damp dirt and cedar roots. Narrow wooden beams groaned softly overhead while the storm rumbled through the mountain like distant artillery. Lily moved ahead, carefully with a small lantern she pulled from inside the wall. The faint glow revealed old blankets, canned food, stacked water jugs. Ethan Mercer had prepared this place for survival long before he vanished. Caleb followed behind her, while Holloway struggled through the cramped passage, breathing heavily. Rex stayed directly beside Lily the entire time, brushing against her every few seconds as if making sure she remained real. Then Lily suddenly stopped walking. Caleb nearly bumped into her in the darkness. "What is it?" he whispered. The girl slowly raised the lantern toward the tunnel wall ahead. Something had been carved into the wood. Words, deep and uneven like they had been scratched in a hurry by trembling hands. Caleb stepped closer to read them. "If Rex returns, trust Caleb Hayes." The Marine felt the blood drain from his face. Lily turned toward him slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. "How did my father know your name?" The tunnel went silent except for the storm roaring above them. Caleb stared at the carved message, unable to breathe for a moment, because the truth crashed into him all at once. Ethan Mercer had not hidden Lily waiting for rescue from anyone. He had been waiting specifically for Caleb. Somewhere ahead in the darkness beneath the farmhouse, a faint metallic sound suddenly echoed through the tunnel. A door opening. The tunnel seemed to hold its breath after Lily asked the question. Caleb Hayes. Carved in wood 3 years before tonight. Snow thundered faintly above them, while cold earth pressed around the narrow passage like a grave refusing to close. Caleb stared at the message again, tried to force sense into something impossible. He had never met Ethan Mercer, never heard the man's name before this storm. Yet somehow a missing Marine had trusted him long before they crossed paths. Ahead of them, the metallic sound echoed again. A heavy latch shifting slowly somewhere deeper beneath the farmhouse. Rex moved first. The German shepherd stepped carefully ahead of Lily, ears high now, body tense but focused. The dog no longer looked lost. He looked like he remembered the way. Holloway wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cold. "This tunnel should end beneath the old horse barn," he whispered. "Ethan built storage rooms after the floods back in 2018. Caleb kept his voice low. "Then what just opened?" Nobody answered. The lantern flickered weakly as they moved deeper underground. Wooden support beams lined the tunnel walls, some warped with age, others reinforced carefully with newer lumber. Ethan Mercer had maintained this place for survival. Not panic, not temporary hiding. Survival. That realization settled heavily into Caleb's chest. Lily suddenly slowed near a bend in the passage. "Right here," she whispered. The tunnel widened into a small underground room hidden beneath the barn foundation. Dust covered most of the shelves, but not all of them. A cot stood against the wall beside a propane heater. Medical supplies, flashlights, stacking food, a battery-powered radio. And on the far wall hung a large map covered in handwritten notes and red circles around Blackwater County. Caleb stepped closer slowly. Names were marked beside roads. Delivery routes, dates, times. Everything Ethan Mercer had uncovered before he disappeared. But what stopped Caleb cold was the photograph pinned in the center of the map. Him, a younger Caleb in Marine dress blues, standing beside Rex during a military rehabilitation ceremony 6 years earlier. Caleb's stomach tightened hard. How'd he get this? Lily approached quietly beside him. Dad watched videos about Rex after the accident, she said softly. He cried the night they transferred him away. Caleb looked down at the photograph again. Rex had nearly died overseas during an explosion that killed his former handler. Caleb had adopted the shepherd after months of rehabilitation because the dog trusted nobody else anymore. Or at least that was what he had been told. Holloway stared at the wall in disbelief. Ethan never stopped trying to track that dog. Rex crossed the room slowly now, nose twitching toward an old military footlocker sitting beneath the map table. The shepherd nudged it once. Then again, Caleb knelt carefully and opened the rusted latches. Inside rested dozens of documents sealed in plastic along with old photographs of Ethan, Lily, and Rex together overseas. But beneath everything else sat a second cassette tape, this one labeled in black marker. For Caleb. Caleb's chest tightened painfully. The room fell silent around him while snow screamed outside the buried barn overhead. Lily looked up at him nervously. Play it. Caleb hesitated only a second before sliding the tape into the old recorder beside the cot. Static crackled softly through the underground room. Then a man's exhausted voice filled the darkness. Ethan Mercer, if you are hearing this, then Rex found you. Caleb closed his eyes briefly. The voice continued, weaker now. I do not know how long Lily survived after we hit her. But if Rex came back to this house, then I know I can trust the man beside him. Lily covered her mouth quietly as tears filled her eyes. Ethan paused on the tape, breathing unevenly before continuing. Caleb Hayes, you do not know me, but your dog saved my life overseas after the blast in Kandahar. He stayed beside me for 16 hours until rescue found us. Rex lifted his head at the sound of Ethan's voice. The shepherd's ears twitched softly in the lantern glow. After they transferred Rex away, I promised him something, Ethan whispered through static, that if I ever had to leave my daughter alone in this world, I would send him back for her. Caleb felt emotion rise hard into his throat. Across from him, Lily quietly reached for Rex again, fingers burying into the thick fur around his neck while the dog leaned gently into her touch. Ethan's voice grew fainter on the tape. The evidence is hidden where nobody searching this county would ever look. Not in the house, not underground, and not on these tapes. Caleb looked up sharply. Where? Static swallowed several seconds. Then Ethan finally answered. It is inside Rex's old service vest. Silence crashed through the room. Holloway stared in disbelief. Caleb looked slowly toward the shepherd lying beside Lily. The same Weather K9 vest still strapped inside the truck parked above the storm. Then suddenly the radio on the shelf crackled violently to life. A distorted voice pushed through the static. Barn tracks found. Search below ground. Rex stood instantly. The lantern flame trembled, and somewhere directly above them, heavy footsteps crossed the barn floor. The footsteps above the barn spread slowly across the ceiling beams while dust drifted down through cracks in the wood like gray snow. Nobody inside the underground room moved. The radio hissed softly. Rex stood directly in front of Lily now, ears rigid, body angled, toward the narrow tunnel entrance. Caleb could hear muffled voices overhead fighting against the storm. Men searching, waiting, running out of patience. Holloway reached for the radio and switched it off carefully. Silence settled again, except for the howl of wind outside. Caleb looked toward the old service vest hanging beside the supply shelf. Worn canvas, faded marine patches, one torn strap repaired by hand years ago. He crossed the room slowly and lifted it down. The vest felt heavier than it should have. Rex watched every movement closely. Caleb turned the vest over once before noticing the stitching along the inner lining, fresh compared to the rest. Ethan Mercer had hidden something inside. Caleb pulled a knife carefully from his boot and cut along the seam. A small waterproof pouch slid into his hand. Lily stared at it silently. Inside rested a flash drive wrapped in plastic along with a folded photograph. Caleb opened the photograph first. Ethan Mercer stood beside Rex outside a military tent overseas, one hand gripping the dog's harness while the other rested on the shoulder of a younger Caleb Hayes. The picture had been taken years before Caleb ever met the man. On the back, written in faded ink, were 6 words. Some dogs carry people home. Caleb looked down at Rex slowly, emotion tightening deep in his chest. The German shepherd stepped closer and rested his head gently against Caleb's knee. Not like a trained canine, like family. Above them, barn doors slammed violently against the wind. Voices shouted. Somebody had found the tunnel entrance. Holloway looked toward Caleb sharply. You need to go now. Caleb held up the flash drive. This ends tonight. Holloway's tired eyes softened sadly. No, he said quietly. This only proves Ethan was telling the truth. The weight of those words settled hard into the room. Caleb understood immediately. Corruption this deep did not disappear because of one piece of evidence. Men like Ethan Mercer vanished because truth frightened powerful people. Lily moved closer beside Rex. Small fingers curled tightly into the dog's fur. Will they keep looking for us? She whispered. Caleb opened his mouth to answer, but stopped. He could not lie to her. Not after everything this child had survived alone inside frozen walls. Instead, he crouched beside her carefully. Not tonight. Her eyes filled slightly, though she fought the tears hard. Dad used to say that when storms got bad, Caleb swallowed against the tightness in his throat. Rex suddenly turned toward Lily and gently pressed his nose beneath her hand again. The girl finally broke then. Not loudly, just a quiet shaking breath after 3 years of silence. She buried her face into the shepherd's neck while snow roared through the mountains overhead. Caleb looked away briefly, giving her what dignity grief still allowed. Some pain deserved privacy. Holloway opened the far tunnel hatch leading toward the woods beyond the barn. Cold dawn lights spilled faintly inside. The storm was finally weakening. Pale blue morning stretched across the snow-covered pines outside like the world trying carefully to begin again. Caleb helped Lily through the hatch first. Rex followed immediately beside her, never more than inches away. The girl paused once beneath the falling snow and looked back toward the buried farmhouse on the hill. Smoke drifted weakly from the broken chimney while porch lights still glowed against the storm-dark sky. The house no longer looked haunted. It looked tired, like something that had spent years holding its breath. Caleb climbed out last. Holloway remained inside the tunnel entrance. You coming? Caleb asked. The old man shook his head slowly. Somebody needs to tell Ethan's story properly. Their eyes met for a long second. 2 tired men standing inside the ruins left behind by another Marine who had loved his daughter enough to prepare for his own disappearance. Holloway gave a faint nod toward Rex. He kept his promise. Caleb looked down at the German shepherd standing beside Lily in the snow. The dog lifted his face toward the mountains as cold wind moved softly through his sable fur. Not once since arriving had Rex hesitated about where to go. As if somewhere beyond instinct, beyond training, he had carried a memory strong enough to guide him home through an entire blizzard. Hours later, emergency. Lights finally climbed the mountain roads while federal vehicles swallowed the quiet valley below. Statements were taken. Names were recorded. Questions multiplied faster than answers. But through all of it, Lily never let go of Rex's collar. Not even once. And when dawn fully broke over Blackwater County, Caleb noticed something that stayed with him long after the storm had passed. The porch light inside the abandoned farmhouse was still burning softly against the snow. Nobody had turned it back on. Nobody could explain how it survived 3 winters without power. Yet it glowed there quietly in the morning haze like someone had left it behind for one reason only. So that someday, a lost dog could find his way home. During a brutal Montana snowstorm, a former Marine and his loyal German Shepherd K9 uncover an abandoned farmhouse hiding a heartbreaking secret that refuses to stay buried. What begins as one of those unforgettable animal stories soon becomes a chilling journey through loss, loyalty, corruption, and a promise carried across years of silence. Inside the frozen walls of the forgotten home, the Marine discovers a terrified young girl who has survived alone while dangerous men continue searching for something her father died protecting. As the German Shepherd begins recognizing old scents, hidden tunnels, military memories, and the voice of the Marine who once saved his life overseas, the truth slowly reveals a bond stronger than time itself. These emotional animal stories blend suspense, mystery, and cinematic emotion as the K-9 leads his new handler toward a destiny neither of them fully understands. Through storms, fear, and painful memories, the Marine learns that some promises are not written in words, but carried quietly inside the hearts of loyal dogs. Fans of emotional rescue dramas, military storytelling, and inspirational animal stories will experience a deeply moving tale about sacrifice, survival, and the invisible thread connecting broken souls, with haunting discoveries, hidden evidence, and one unforgettable emotional payoff. This story captures why animal stories about Marines and German Shepherds continue to touch millions of hearts around the world. As dawn rises over Blackwater County and the porch light still burns against the snow, the Marine realizes that not every lost soul is truly gone, because sometimes animal stories are really about the ones who find their way back home.